In 1901, two women took what should have been a casual stroll through the gardens of a French estate. But as they walked, an oppressive feeling came over them. People and objects seemed oddly out of place, and the atmosphere felt unnatural. It wasn't until days later that the two came together and asked, "Is time travel real?" Today, we examine the mysterious case of the Moberly-Jourdain Incident. This is Red Web. Welcome back, Task Force, to another episode of Red Web, the podcast all about unsolved mysteries, true crime, and the unexplained. I am your resident mystery enthusiast, Trevor Collins, and joining me hearing this case for the very first time, Alfredo Diaz.
And apparently time travel.
In this one.
Dude, time travel is... It's messy, man. It's messy, and I feel like so many people would ruin their lives because everyone's thinking, what if I just went back and I changed this? Just this one thing.
Just a tiny little thing.
Just a tiny little thing, right? Even if it was like one of the worst moments of your life, it's like, well, how much development did you do after that, right? And if you didn't have that moment, would you have learned, etc.? I don't know, man. And if everyone's, oh my goodness, if everyone was just changing their course of history constantly, or their own history, like imagine if everyone just had the opportunity to change one moment in their life.
Everyone's got that one ability.
Well, everyone's got the one time. What would happen to the timeline? Where would it be? Just, I guess, constantly resetting and jumping around. Like, I didn't even think about that, actually. Like, if everyone had one moment that they can go back and change at any point in time they want to change it. Okay,
I have an answer. And this
Where the hell does the world go?
The world would be wild. From a holistic, outside the world perspective, it would be snip snapping all over the place. Ashton Kutcher what is it called? The butterfly effect would be happening left and right. You know, so you do one little thing and the whole world can change. But here's the thing. From any one person's perspective, the world would feel very stable. Because as soon as something changed, it will have always been part of your life.
Oh, true.
And so at any given moment, in your present moment, the world would feel, even if it's odd from 5 seconds ago, how it's always been.
Yeah.
And then 5 seconds from now, it might change again, but you wouldn't know because you wouldn't have those iterative memories. It would just sweep over your entire past. Unless it was something that happened maybe within your lifetime. I think at that point, right? You would then remember the shift.
True. I don't know. That's an interesting thought.
Yeah. And that's how we get the Mandela effect.
Yeah. True.
But yeah, dude, this one's a very interesting one. And we thought now that we're here in the October season, Halloween's right around the corner. You know, we just posted our Scary Stories pilot podcast on Patreon last Wednesday.
Yes, we did.
Task Force, go check it out. But because we're in this kind of spooky, eerie, uncanny valley kind of mode, this month will be all about cases kind of like this, exploring the unknown as you know us to do, but with these interesting, I don't know how else to say it other than stories. The journey that these two women went on is so fascinating, but the theories are just as intriguing.
Oh yeah, I'm sure we're going to do aliens and government experiments and...
Well, no, not today, but 99% of the time, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I could sneak those in there. I think I could make that happen. Just like wedge those in.
Oh, you could completely wedge those in. 1,000%.
Every single time. I feel like there's a wheel that if you spin it, you could probably put alien and government and conspiracy on 20% blocks and you'll be very good there. But yeah, speaking of other things coming out, Task Force, if you want to support us, head over to redwebpod.com, become a member of our Patreon, get this podcast ad-free, get lots of good stuff. The stretch goal's a week early. In fact, we have another stretch goal this very Wednesday happening on Patreon. It is our vlog. This time we're revisiting the candy tier list, Fredo, from our stream a few months ago. We're going to see if Christian can become one with the Swedish Fish Mafia or if he will continue to aggravate the group.
We're going to grab a bunch of candy. We're going to taste them, rank them.
Yes.
And then we're going to throw just a little extra at the end. Burger King.
You know, the candy of the burger world.
Candy of the burger world. Essentially, it's going back to the stream where we had a candy tier list and we were ranking them, and it caused a riot. And then we talked about Burger King, and that caused another riot.
Right.
And so we're going to taste them in real life and re-rank them. And it'll be a nice little vlog. I'm sure the chats will riot yet again.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm all for the Swedish Fish moving up the tier list, but we will see.
We will see. And maybe we will have to physically peer pressure Christian, because this splinter organization of the task force known as the Swedish Fish Mafia is it's getting out of hand, and I think we need to reabsorb them, but only placating them through a high-level tier, but honestly, we'll make it happen.
Yeah.
But also lots of things happening this week. Like I said, on our Patreon this Thursday, we are releasing yet another outline from the desk of our research department. And then on Friday, we have yet another episode of our monthly behind-the-scenes show called Break Room. So lots to chew on there, speaking of candy. So come on over. It is the spooky season. Some movie clubs of the season here happening this month as well. So lots to enjoy. But with that, let me take you back in time. We're going to talk about the background of these two individuals to give you a little bit more about their personalities, their character, who they are. And then we're going to walk through the gardens of the Palace of Versailles, experiencing what they documented during the incident. And then, of course, the aftermath of it and the theories. Very interesting one. I want to say we've got it solved. There's a very interesting theory, but I'll have to hold that till the end.
Okay.
All right. Charlotte Ann Elizabeth Moberly was born on September 16th, 1846 in Winchester, Hampshire, England. Right out of the gate, I do have a photo for you, Fredo.
Okay.
It is of both women. The second one is Eleanor Jourdain, and we will be talking about her in just a second.
Okay. Older women, black and white photo.
Mm-hmm.
Each a solo portrait side by side. Loving the outfits.
Great outfits.
Very of that time period.
Yeah. So Charlotte Moberly is on the left, I should say.
Okay, she has glasses, dark hair.
And Eleanor Jourdain, she is on the right.
And then she does not have glasses and gray hair.
Gray hair, yeah. And that one I think is a photo.
Oh.
So, yeah, very, those even old-timey photos, very high quality, very nice looking.
Yeah, and then we can't get video footage or photos of high quality of anything nowadays when we...
No. It's the force field that the aliens use to travel through space and time. It's just simple, okay? So those are our two women who we're going to be talking about today and what they experienced. So Moberly came from a very large family and was the 10th of a total of 15 children.
Damn!
Her father, yeah, a big family. Her father, George Moberly, was the headmaster of Winchester College and would later become the Bishop of Salisbury. While he served as bishop, Charlotte acted as his secretary. She would later become his secretary and caregiver as his health deteriorated until his death in 1885. Then, just a year later, in 1886, she was appointed as the first principal of the all-women's college, St. Hugh's Hall in Oxford. This is where she would eventually meet Eleanor Jourdain. So Jourdain was born on November 16th, 1863 in Ashburn, Derbyshire, England, and also came from a large family, though this time she was the eldest of 10 children.
They just popped them out back then. They just popped them out, dude. Damn.
They're having lots of kids. And as I imagine, if you're in the middle of that, like the 10th of 15, you got to know how to keep your siblings away, but you develop some social skills quick. As the eldest of 10, you're kind of a third parent at that point.
I would think so, yeah.
Now, unlike most women at the time who were tutored at home, Jourdain attended a private school in Manchester. She was an esteemed academic and would go on to earn her doctorate from the University of Paris. Now, I was very curious as to what she was a doctor of, and so Kat kind of looked into that a little further, our researcher, and she couldn't find an exact answer. But looking at some of the various resources, she said that Jourdain was researching the symbolism in Dante's Divine Comedy and was awarded a doctorate based on her research. After this, she had served as a secretary to many, including an archbishop's wife and several headmistresses, even co-founding and acting as a headmistress herself at the Quran Collegiate School there in Watford. When it was clear that Moberly needed assistance in running St. Hugh's Hall, Jourdain was actually invited to act as her secretary, and the two became close friends. So this is kind of how they met one another, but also what stands out to me very quickly, knowing where this story goes, was how well educated they both were. And we've seen this before in the past, when professors analyze the paranormal. Like the Lubbock Lights. When you have a bunch of professors out there actually taking scientific observations, you get real, interesting, more hard scientific evidence rather than it happened, just believe it. I
True.
love when the academic can approach the unknown.
Gotta love that.
So now we know how they met one another, but now let's talk about the day that they had this incident, for lack of a better word. On August 10th, 1901, the two women were on holiday in Paris, and they decided to visit the Palace of Versailles. And I tried to give you just two images to really show you the Palace of Versailles, but I feel like I was overwhelmed with the beauty of this place. It is huge, it's stunning, there's so much ornate decoration, the gardens. So this first image is a sky level of the entire palace, plus a little bit of the gardens.
Damn.
Yeah.
This is massive.
Very.
I mean, it's a huge palace, massive courtyard. I mean, like you could put multiple apartment buildings in here, in this
Very
courtyard.
much so.
Jesus.
Yeah. And this is just like a snippet. I think mostly to the left is the gardens.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you can only see a little bit, and even then it's huge. And then just for the sake of knowing how the two felt about this palace, I wanted to show you one of the main halls of this building that has held historic figures over the years. So many treaties and documents and meetings of the minds have all happened in this hall. It's gorgeous, it's stunning, it's ornate.
This is like, I mean, like, I would say even too fancy for an episode of Bridgerton. You know what I mean? Like this is too much.
Yes, it is a little too much.
Like Bridgerton's more subtle than this.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, damn, there's like, I mean, dude, it's a long hallway and there are 3 chandeliers next to each other, one in the middle, 2 in the sides, and then it just goes down the entire hallway.
Right.
So there's probably like 21 of these things.
Now, at some point, they've got to have a mirror, right? And I feel like there's a mirror on the far side and the back side, but no, for sure, one side has windows at least,
One
right?
side has windows, yeah.
It's so hard to tell.
But I mean, and then all the paintings up top, like, geez.
Yeah, dude.
This is stunning.
Yeah, that's that 16th century rich, you know what I mean? Where you could make anything.
Right.
It's almost overstimulating how much is going on here.
Yeah, it's too much.
Yeah. But stunning nonetheless, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to set this up because I was blown away. Now, the two were seemingly underwhelmed with the palace itself, and they went for a walk in the gardens outside, which, yes, the gardens are absolutely stunning, but I'm laughing at myself, the fact that they're underwhelmed with this palace.
I don't even, underwhelmed is wild. I don't know what you're expecting. It doesn't get much crazier than that. It really doesn't.
Okay, so now they're in the gardens. Equally beautiful, perhaps. They're out in the wilds here. And they decided to visit what's called the Petit Trianon, or in English, Trianon. It's a small chateau that's located on the grounds. And again, to give you that visual here, I have an image of it. In fact, there are images from 1901, or give or take, and this is a more modern image, but it's very close to what it actually looked like at that time. So props to the groundkeepers for really keeping this almost like a timepiece. This whole property has just been kept so well.
It looks like a smaller building, but the whole scene, if you ever watch X-Men First Class, and Charles is telling Magneto to like use his powers to move a satellite across the way, it looks like that in terms of like the balcony and the building behind it and the garden, the layout, all that. It looks like that. A little bit of a smaller scale.
Right, triple the width of this building, and you've got Professor X's school for the young and gifted.
Yes.
This would be turn 75 degrees to the right, and you see a satellite bent askew because Magneto. Yeah, I know exactly the scene.
Exactly the scene.
I know that scene.
It looks like it.
The crunchy rocks, that you walk along there. I imagine that's for sure what they got going on. So this is where they're headed. And again, it looks the same today as it did then. It's a historic site, so I'm not surprised. But on the way, they pass what's called the Grand Trianon, which they noted was closed to visitors that day. So they continue on their journey, and the pair are then supposed to turn on what's called the Allée des Deux Trianons, which is the avenue of 2 Trianons, basically the Grand and the Petite, and the avenue that kind of goes past both. But unknowingly, they missed that turn. And again, I have a map of this place. It's a little overwhelming, but it does show you the scale of this garden and how it's kind of easy to not take this path or that.
Wow. That's a lot.
But yeah, so there you have it. There's the garden. It is quite expansive. And so, like I said, they missed the avenue that they were meant to walk down and continued down the path. The women then described what they felt at this point. They said a strange feeling kind of poured over the both of them. They felt, in their words, oppressed, tired, kind of dreary, like the day just got the energy sucked out, like the color was pulled out of the wind. And still, they continued to walk, they took in their surroundings, and they actually have a book I'll talk about here in a second, but they wrote down some of the examples of what they saw. So Moberly reported seeing a woman peeking out of a window. She was shaking a white cloth, maybe dusting it or what have you. Jourdain noticed a farmhouse that appeared to be deserted, and it had an old plow in the front lawn of this farmhouse. So now at this point, they're a little turned around. They don't know where the Petit Trianon is, and so they're seeking further direction, and the two of them consulted a few men who they believed to be palace gardeners. Just a few men gathered up together, and they said, hey, where are we going? How do we get there? Now, what's interesting is that Moberly described these men as wearing, quote, long grayish-green coats with small three-cornered hats, end quote. These men then told them to continue straight down the path that they were on in order to get to where they were going. As they continued, they recalled that the atmosphere became very unpleasant. They described what they were seeing as kind of living in a picture of sorts, almost akin to being surrounded by wax figures, which I want you to hold on to for one of the theories.
Okay.
But what's interesting is at this point too, they noticed that any evidence of the sun seemingly vanished. They said that no shadows could be seen, and otherwise this was a bright and sunny afternoon. I couldn't find anything to do with the weather. If it became suddenly overcast, you know those moments when the sun goes behind the clouds, of course the shadows go away. It would also make the day feel quite dreary, but we couldn't really find any sort of, I don't know, it stood out to them, and so I imagine it just, something felt off about it.
Okay.
In fact, I want to quote Moberly herself because she describes the feeling that came over her at this moment. She said, quote, everything suddenly looked unnatural, therefore unpleasant. Even the trees seemed to become flat and lifeless like wood worked in tapestry, end quote. So everything feels strange, but they're not really stopping to analyze it. They continue to walk, and they come upon a man sitting beside what they describe as a garden kiosk. He was wearing a cloak with a wide-brimmed hat. Moberly said that he looked most repulsive, with an odious expression and a face that was pockmarked, almost as if by smallpox. So you see like little scars, little round scars, kind of covering the face.
Okay.
And again, they're saying this man looks quite repulsive because of it. And Jourdain describes him as wearing an expression that was, quote, evil yet unseeing. So she said that as if he appeared that, he's looking at them, but almost through them. And that kind of gave him this really eerie, distant look. Like he's not really seeing them. He's looking through them for some reason. Maybe like they're not even truly there.
Interesting.
So at this point, another man appeared and showed them the way to the Petit Trianon. And they also recalled quite the detailed description of this man. He was tall, with dark, curly hair that curled under what they described as a large sombrero hat. Now, Task Force, help me out here. As far as I know, the sombrero is part of Mexican culture, and it's not super common to be seen in Paris, especially not at the turn of the century in the 1901 era.
I wouldn't think so.
Yeah, so I don't know if she meant a larger hat, and that was something that was lost in the French to English translation, but suffice to say, he was wearing a large hat described as a sombrero. Now, following the path that they were guided on at this point, so the man said, go this way, off they go. They then cross a bridge that would then lead them to the gardens that were in front of the palace. Just past the bridge, Moberly noticed a woman sitting in the grass drawing in a sketchbook. Again, they're really describing a lot of what they're seeing. And I love the vivid details.
I love it, yeah. I love that. I mean, because sometimes we just get nothing, and here it's just vivid. You take what you can get.
Absolutely. And to me, even if it's story, even if it's detailed and it's recounted, it doesn't mean it's fact, but it gives you something to analyze.
Right.
It's really hard to assess, I saw a light, that's it. If you can't even come up with a sketch of what that looked like in the sky, then there's no starting point really on how to analyze. This episode of Red Web is sponsored by Rocket Money. With prices going up on just about everything lately, dealing with money can be stressful. Trying to manage subscriptions, track spending, and cut costs can feel overwhelming. Luckily, Rocket Money can relieve some of that stress and help you feel confident in the financial decisions you make. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Rocket Money shows you all your expenses in one place, including subscriptions you forgot about, and if you see a subscription you no longer want, Rocket Money will help you cancel it. Their dashboard lays out your total financial picture, including bill due dates and pay dates, in a way that's easy to digest. You can even automatically create custom budgets based on your past spending. I use Rocket Money to track all of my different credit cards, debit cards, and payment flows so I can see everything going on in my life, and then I can track, hey, am I saving as much as I want to every month? Where's my money coming in from, and where is it going? If I have bills that are bigger than usual, I can see if it is entertainment, if it's travel, or if it's something else. It's nice to see where everything's going so it's not just lost in the web of my mind. Rocket Money's 5 million members have saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, with members saving up to $740 a year when they use all the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/redweb today. That's rocketmoney.com/redweb. Once again, that's rocketmoney.com/redweb. This episode of Red Web is sponsored by Shopify. If you've shopped online, Task Force, chances are you've bought from a business powered by Shopify. You know that purple Shop Pay button that you see at checkout, the one that makes buying so incredibly easy? Well, that is Shopify. And there's a reason why so many businesses sell with it, because Shopify makes it incredibly easy to start and run your business. Shopify is the commerce platform behind 10% of all e-commerce in the United States, from household names like Mattel and Gymshark to brands just getting started. Shopify gives you that leg up from day one with hundreds of beautiful, ready-to-go templates to express your brand style. Forget needing to code everything. Tackle all those important tasks in one place, from inventory to payments to analytics and more. Everything you could need, it's all right there. Spread your brand's word with built-in marketing tools and email tools to find and keep new customers. And that iconic purple Shop Pay button that's used by millions of businesses around the world? Well, it's why Shopify has the best converting checkout on the planet. Your customers already love it. My experience with Shopify is nothing but seamless. Anytime I've ever needed to build a website, Shopify has my back. I've surfed through all their various templates, and it's so easy to flex the website into something that you need it to be. You can feel like a one-person business that looks like a 100-person business. I love that. I love how powerful and unique the website is, and you can get your brand to look like your brand, not some vague, ambiguous template. Task Force, if you want to see less carts being abandoned, it's time to head over to Shopify. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/redweb. Go to shopify.com/redweb. That's shopify.com/redweb. So like I said, they cross this bridge, and we'll talk about this bridge in a moment, but then they see this woman sketching in the grass, and at first glance, she believed that this woman was just another tourist, nothing to take note of. However, upon further inspection, she noticed that the woman was dressed in what she describes as old-fashioned clothes. She wore a light summer dress, and underneath her large, shady white hat was very fair hair, like very blonde, maybe even platinum blonde hair. But it was a younger woman, which was interesting. So it's a very specific combination of features, not super common. Especially for 1901, we don't have women. I don't know. I don't want to speak out of turn. I don't know when women started bleaching hair, and if that happened at the turn of the century.
Right. I don't know. Yeah, that's interesting. When did women start just going like, you know what? I would like a different color in my hair.
Yeah.
And also, who are the women that were like, sure,
okay.
What happened?
Okay, I looked it up. It's old. Okay.
Really?
Yeah, listen, I don't know fashion trends going back to the 5th century BCE.
What?
Ancient Greece, 5th century BC. Greek women used natural ingredients like saffron and olive oil to lighten their hair, which was associated with beauty, youth, and social status. But, like bleaching as we know it, just a little fun fact, it turns out became popularized in the early 1900s by film stars like Jean Harlow. And then it was developed further in the mid-centuries with like kits that one could use at home. That's crazy. I didn't even know that.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty wild.
Yeah. Okay. Well, lightening your hair is one thing, but okay. But yeah, and the reason why I kind of hung on the hair description, though, is because of We're going to come back to a lot of these details, and I just don't want you to forget some of them.
Okay.
But yeah, so she's wearing old-timey clothes, she's sketching in the grass, she has this very platinum hair, essentially. And interestingly, Moberly was the only one to spot this woman in particular. Jourdain never saw this woman, though up until this point, the two had seemingly remembered all of the same encounters. Oh, you saw that man in the window. Oh, we talked to that same group of gardeners. Okay. The whole journey is the same up into this moment.
Mm-hmm.
But this is where the incident comes to an end, almost like the end of Alice in Wonderland, where the pair finally found another group of tourists and then joined up with their group before then leaving the palace. So it sounds like the two of them kind of wandered off, saw some interesting things that just stood out. They felt very strange, very weird. And then they said, all right, let's just go back. And they ended up back and off they went. Now, in the days following their excursion, neither woman really talked about what they witnessed with one another. They didn't discuss with anybody, really, what they saw. That is, until about a week after their trip, Moberly wrote a letter to her sister where she detailed this experience to someone else for the very first time. Kind of like you. Every case I discuss, you're my sister to my Moberly.
Yeah.
But she then asked Jourdain if she thought the Petit Trianon was haunted. Jourdain actually replied that she thought it was. It seems the pair decided to independently then write down everything they remembered, what they experienced, who they saw, and then they wanted to compare their notes after. Like, okay, that day felt weird. We had this strange feeling, ominous, oppressive, dreary. We saw some strange people. Do you think a haunted could figure this out? Okay, let's compare notes. I love that part too.
Yeah, we like that.
So now, jarred by their shared experience, they compared their notes and all of the details seemingly lined up, and that caused them to want to go into it deeper. So they decided to do a deeper dive into the history of this palace, which is quite extensive. We're not going to give you the history of the Palace of Versailles, but before we do continue, I do want to give one of my favorite parts of this story. When you look at the research lightly outlined in their book, again, I'll talk about this in a second, you see how they looked back at the history of the palace, what happened, what was ordered or what was on purchase lists, what was seen pictured in paintings, and they even looked at recorded weather on various dates. They really went into the archives for years and kind of said, okay, I had this revelation and that revelation, and they kind of organized it by year. We found this out in 1902, we found this out in 1903, and I do love the process of that and trying to corroborate what they saw with historical elements to try to see if, again, these are ghosts from the past, or if, as you'll come to see, or if they kind of slipped into the past themselves. So I wanted to give some brief outlinings of their findings over the years. For example, they wrote down if or when plows arrived in the gardens and what those plows would have looked like, because again, those changed over the centuries, and they saw one at a farmhouse, and so they're like, cool, let's jot down what the plow looked like, and then we'll see when in time that style of plow was around. They looked at what the bourgeoisie were wearing, and specifically in the 14th century of all times, and they were like, well, they wore tunics and short capes. Does that match with what we saw? They also looked at the structures and the tree around the grounds, and they were realizing, like, okay, during certain decades, there was a structure here that no longer exists, or there was trees over there that don't exist. What did we see, and where were their trees, and can we use that to triangulate our time and space?
That is so elaborate.
Yeah.
I would start questioning what I saw.
Yes.
It's like
yes.
Easily. If you're talking about like, was there a tree there? What type of tree? Bro, I don't know. I would be like, no. And then I'd think about it for like a week and be like, honestly, maybe I did see a tree there. Like, I'd be so all over the place.
Yeah. You'd be like, I don't know about that tree. A week later, you're like, you know what? I think there was a tree. A month later, I was climbing that tree, you know? You could easily make up those memories, especially when you're looking at a bunch of paintings, a bunch of archives, you're trying to remember things. But yeah, they looked into the staffing of the garden, things like that. Now, upon further research, the pair came to the conclusion that they themselves were involved in some sort of time travel experience. They couldn't quite explain it, they didn't really have answers, but with all their research and everything they remembered, it just seemed like they were slipping out of time, and that was the only way to them to truly explain all the oddities that they experienced, from the old-timey outfits to the objects seen in the garden that weren't of present day, and everything like that. Now, some reports state that they believe they traveled specifically, not to an area of time or a swath of time, but specifically to August 10th, 1792. This would be exactly 109 years prior when they visited. They found that on this particular day, the Tuileries Palace in France was being besieged, and the King's Swiss Guard were slaughtered. According to Moberly and Jourdain, they visited the palace several more times, trying to retrace their steps and make sense of what they saw and what was going on that path that they walked. However, they were unsuccessful in finding the same path that they took that day. Now, how would you feel about that, Fredo, if you and I walked through a garden like this on a ghost hunt, and then we come back the next day and we just couldn't figure out the path we took?
I'd want to get out of there. I feel like it'd be some kind of like Gonjam Haunted Asylum, which is a movie that we covered.
Mm-hmm.
Or one of the other ones. Like, was it the Ghost Hunter ones that we felt like it was like a movie about us?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know which one I'm talking about, though.
What was that one? If only Christian were here.
I know. He would know. He'd be able to pull it up right away.
Grave Encounters.
Grave Encounters.
It was Grave Encounters.
Where like no matter what door they open, it kept leading back. Like whatever exit they open would keep leading back. I'd be afraid that would happen.
Oh, that's a valid fear. Not that I've seen that happen, but I don't want to.
Right. I don't want to walk this path. It's different now. Like I just walked it yesterday. My memory ain't that bad.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I remember a lot of locations is visually. So it would really throw me off. And I'd be terrified that I'd be in some kind of weird time loop or distorted location in which I could get stuck in. And I'd be like, I'm out.
Yeah, dude, if the world is feeling uncanny valley, there's something like a primal fear in that. I just don't like the idea that, and I don't think it was a day or a week. If they're going on vacation to Paris, I imagine that this must have been months. We didn't have the exact timeline. Mm-hmm. So I will say memories can ebb and flow and change. But I would still feel like if I was Moberly or Jourdain and I'm walking around these gardens and I can't find the bridge, the tree, the house, the path, any of the things that I've remembered vividly, that's kind of terrifying. I'm with you. I would definitely be like, you go ahead. I'm gonna head back to the car.
Yep.
I got some Capri Suns and hot dogs back there. You know,
exactly.
You this out.
Just do your thing. Or something like, I don't know, we'll send like a drone in there or something like that.
Now that's good. A drone that can follow your path.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like that, investigate from a distance. So when I ghost hunt and you're just a drone, I know where the seed was planted. Okay.
Exactly.
If we're in a house, I'm hearing a buzz and it's just you talking through a loudspeaker on a drone from home safely.
Pretty much. Yeah. As safe as possible.
And you're like, I'm still there for you.
I'm still there.
Now this is where things get strange. They couldn't find the path. But some parts of the landscape were missing. The bridge to the gardens, the garden kiosk that they stumbled upon, the haunting man with the pockmarked face. All of these seemingly major landmarks were just gone. And in their research, they believe that the woman whom Moberly saw sketching in the garden that day was actually Marie Antoinette. And the pockmarked man that was at the kiosk was her friend, the Comte de Vaudreuil, which is basically a nobleman in the king's court. So what's interesting is that Marie Antoinette actually died in 1793, 108 years prior. And she was, I believe, in her mid to late 30s when she died. Mm-hmm. And so this is a very tight window that they're trying to anticipate that they slipped back to. In fact, it would have been less than a year before her passing. But
I am not smart enough to try and gauge what time period I'm slipping back to. I'm sorry. I'm just not. Like, this is an old time period. This is not so old.
This is old. I don't remember that kind of lingo.
Yeah.
Yeah. When the ghosts start dabbing, I might be able to start time stamping.
Right. Exactly. Hello, sir. What goodeth day? Like, I'm just
what he speaketh our way. Yeah. Or again, when you're in New York's, these talks like this. Now I really need a mobster ghost,
Mm-hmm.
Booze, with his.
With his.
With hauntings,
Checks yourselves.
Okay, so looking a little bit back now and trying to bring our own facts to the table, what's tough is that this nobleman, it's unclear if they ever had smallpox. And so we couldn't get to the bottom of if they would have had the scarring on their face, a sign of smallpox or anything. That would have been a really interesting thing. If they came to the table saying we saw a man that dressed like this, had these scars, and we think it might be this person, my mind would have been a little bit blown.
Yeah, it would have been a lot to take in.
Yeah, we can't fully corroborate that, but So all this said, the events of August 10th, 1792 were a stark contrast to what the two women experienced. Some state that the pair believed they stumbled into a memory of Marie Antoinette, using that to explain why they felt trapped and oppressed, those emotions that would have been pouring out from Marie Antoinette herself. And so this becomes so interesting because we're either talking about a ghost story where the past comes to the present, or in this case, we're talking about these women almost stepping into a memory or time slipping into the past. That would be interesting if you could see if ghosts were just apparitions from the future. That'd be wild.
Ooh, that would be wild. I don't know, man. It's kind of like sliders. They're just going in and out of like different time pockets. It's cool. It's a cool story.
Yeah.
And it's all like in this slow. I mean, like, what would this be? Like a hotspot? Like an anomaly of a location? Like,
I mean, historically, so much has happened here at Versailles. My old brain keeps saying Treaty of Versailles, which is where they officially ended World War I in 1919. But so many other events have happened there at this palace. And so if you're a subscriber to the paranormal, then odds are, yeah, there's some latent energy stomping around this grounds. But the fact that they time slipped back is, I think, what makes this interesting and so much more unique. The problem I have, though, is August 10th, 1792, like I said, is kind of in juxtaposition to the memory that they have of their experience. And so if they did time slip, I'm not sure that day and time would have been it.
Okay.
But who knows? I never time slipped before. Regardless, whatever happened that day, the two were convinced that they experienced a paranormal encounter of some kind, and they decided to write and publish a book titled An Adventure 10 years later in 1911. In fact, they published this book under the pseudonyms Elizabeth Morrison and Francis Lamont, and they detailed their experience here at the palace that day. It's a fascinating yet short book. You can find it online, and I found myself scrubbing through it back and forth, and we'll talk about that a little bit. But because of the story's intricate nature, the many details, and the almost compulsive way with which these two researched history to try to corroborate what they saw, it creates this very sticky, like once you get into these pages, you're kind of all over the place. You yourself start to get in there and start to analyze what they saw and try to fact find. Was it real? Was it not? And I don't know. It was really interesting.
Also, too, it's just like we're so far back in a time period where I'm not really questioning as much like, was this for, fame, or like, was this for attention? They wrote a book 10 years later.
Yeah, 10 years. And
then they use essentially like ghost names. So that's nice, as opposed to, stories nowadays are like, what's the gain here? Is there a movie deal that we're trying to grab, or some type of funding or anything like that?
I mean, I'll definitely address that a little bit in the theories, because we'll talk about it. But I was kind of impressed by the fact that it took 10 years to want to make a book out of it. Within the book, you can see all of the, almost like in the appendix, just loose notes. 1901, 1902, 1903, all the way up. They're like, these are the things we found out. And they try their best, seemingly, to put some evidence, cite their sources. Not everything is fully cited. I couldn't find everything that they were talking about, but so there is a little bit of like fact-finding by way of trust in their words, but again, it stood out to me that it wasn't right away, that they're trying to monetize this thing. Now, when the book came out, it caused quite a sensation, as many truly couldn't believe what was being reported. This idea, this sighting of Marie Antoinette so long after her death, of course, especially in Paris, people are like, it certainly raises an eyebrow and causes quite a stir. Many people, just for the story alone, were fascinated. It was met with a lot of criticism from skeptics as well, who tried to find a rational explanation for what was seen that day. So you have both sides, as always, coming to the table saying, this is fascinating. What does this mean about our reality? And then others going, obviously it's a tale. Let's figure out the rational explanation. That's our podcast.
Yeah.
But back in the day.
Right.
But this is where I put here that things got a little interesting. In their book, the two claim that on April 1908, they discovered plans for the Trianon grounds and a manuscript map among archive papers. Now, I do want to flag this. A lot of sources out there quote this year as 1903, but the book itself says 1908, and this is when they found a map that helped corroborate that a certain path existed, the very one that they walked down. I'll actually use their words to describe it. They say that the plans and the map, quote, exactly agree with the position of, end quote, the small bridge that the pair were crossing. I kind of truncated the quote, but basically, they couldn't find a map that ever, throughout time, ever included the bridge that they were on. That was kind of the centerpiece for them being like, why can't we find where we walked? This bridge doesn't exist. But we walked across a bridge.
Yeah, and I mean, you discussed it earlier how there was a bridge, then there wasn't a bridge. I'm like, that's the most outlandish thing to disappear.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It's not just like it was replanted overnight or.
Yeah.
I mean, you like to hear that, right? That they did their due diligence, their research. They looked at blueprints, no bridge, and so like I don't know. Let's put my mind where their head is at. If I walked across a bridge and then it wasn't there the next day and I was like, let's check the blueprints and there was never a bridge, I'd be like, this is absolutely insane. Like it's over the top. It's wild. I don't know what to do.
Yeah. It's very hard to believe.
No one's going to believe me.
Yeah. And so you start to wonder, did they cross the bridge? Was this like a short period of time that it existed? So again, taking their word at face value, they say they found both archival papers that spoke of it and they put MS map, which I assume is a manuscript map. They didn't show this map, though in the book there are various scans of maps at the very end of the appendix, but instead, near it on page 62, I included their recreation of this map. And so it's on the side, because it's in the book sideways, but right there in the middle, you see a small lake, and up north of that is the kiosk. And so crossing that river, I believe, or somewhere around there is where that bridge would have been.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, this place is massive.
Yeah.
So I don't think that it's like, oh, we entered a different section and we don't know, or we just got turned around. It is that big, but you think you'd know where you're at.
It would be weird if two sections far apart were near identical for symmetry, but one had a bridge and the other didn't. That'd be wild.
That'd be pretty wild.
So like I said, I couldn't find this. Kat couldn't find it in all of her research. So it does offer a pretty big hole. Again, you got to trust some of the face value stuff they're saying in the book. They do cite some sources, others left me wanting. But moving on though, I want to talk about the pseudonyms that they used, because it's largely suspected that the pair decided to hide their identities from the public out of fear of widespread backlash, thus negatively impacting their academic careers. It is interesting. I love to hear your gut instinct say like, well, maybe it wasn't for money or fame because it didn't have their names on it. But also there's the more real reason, like maybe we got to protect our academic-based careers, because other academics might look at that and be like, ghosts? Time travel? You know? Yeah,
and your reputation goes out the window.
Right.
Which, I mean, again, that still is in the category of, you know, they're not out for money, fame, that kind of thing.
What's interesting too, and this starts to get us into the theories conversation, but what's interesting too is that it's not like they were very secretive about this story. Per some reports, it seems that they were pretty open about these stories with their students. And so you start to get this wishy-washy back and forth, not knowing what reality is versus arguments are, because like, yes, that's a sound line of thinking, but at the same time, if they're telling their students, it doesn't seem that they're actually too worried about their academic careers, because that could get around the school and then around the region pretty easily, you know?
True, but it's also in like such a, you know what I mean? How far is it really going to go as opposed to publishing something with your name on it if you're just telling students?
That's fair. I'm thinking about 2025. When you walk out your front door, you're on a camera somewhere.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
You know, so I guess I'm thinking about word of mouth getting around the world in 5 seconds, but yeah, you might be right. You might be right. In this environment with a more intimate class, smaller,
I could see people talking, but that ripple not going far.
Yeah, that's fair. Unless you're like, Papa, my great teacher today told me she went through time You're not going to that school anymore, Tim.
Man, the change in dialogue.
It sounds like Dad's been...
Look here, kid. I can't be talking like that. What is this?
Maybe Dad's been time slipping. Who knows? We don't talk about time slips here, Tim.
Papa, why are you talking like that?
Why are you talking like that? Oh, man. Well, here's the thing. Ultimately, their identity was made public 20 years later in 1931 when their names were firmly attached to the book, I believe in the 4th edition. So
4th edition?
The 4th edition, that's right. They did come back, add some details, remove some details. We'll talk about those in the theories, but 4 editions in their lifetimes. So as we come to a close, before I just drop right into the theories, I feel like we need some closure on these two individuals. So Moberly served as a principal until 1915 when she retired, with Jourdain taking her place.
Oh.
Jourdain, yeah. So Jourdain had been promoted to vice principal prior to that, starting in 1905, and so the two had been working together pretty closely for quite some time. A very good trust built between the two of them. And then after becoming principal, Jourdain gained a pretty negative reputation for being an autocratic leader, kind of like a law by one, like my way or the highway kind of deal.
Got it.
And then in 1923, she influenced the college to fire a tutor whom she thought was defying her. So if that's any sort of example of the type of leader she might have been.
Mm-hmm.
An investigation soon followed after this, and the tutor argued that the termination was wrongful. And not long after this, it became clear to Jourdain that she would be asked to resign. But before that could happen, Jourdain died from a heart attack on April 6, 1924. Moberly would outlive her by several years, eventually passing in 1937.
Oh, wow.
So it would have been Moberly herself who would have finalized the 4th edition just a few years prior to her death, because that would have been post-mortem for Jourdain. But now with the passing of these two women here in time, it's time to analyze the two obvious theories. One, that this was a time slip, that this truly happened. And two, obviously, that this was made up, a false claim, or otherwise a misunderstanding. And within that, there's a nice and nuanced theory that came a few decades after their passings that I'm very excited to talk about. We'll put that as the second theory because it kind of blurs between a more grounded response but addresses some of these out-of-time elements. I'm so fascinated by this theory. I do think... Oh, I'll hold my thoughts. I'll get there. So let's talk about the time slip. So a time slip, as you can imagine, is a term that's used to describe a paranormal episode in which one travels through time, whether they know it or not, or whether they knew how or why it happened or not. Honestly, this is one of the explanations many use in the paranormal society to talk about how ghosts or the energy of people from the past might be able to be in the present and might be able to talk through time or see through time. But the idea of a time slip kind of ties into something I'm even more interested in, which is the multiverse theory, which very briefly states that there's an infinite number of universes all coexisting at the very same time as our world. Each of these could be at different phases of time. They don't all have to be here on the same day, the same hour, and every decision you make or don't make is an infinite number of spin-offs. So maybe, truthfully, through some sort of quantum mechanics, it might be possible in some way to slip into a parallel world that is for some reason 109 years backwards from yours to the day, but then you slip right back, almost like two bubbles touching for a brief moment and then separating back off. What do you think about that?
I mean, I could see it happening, especially with like things like deja vu or stuff like that. Like, I can see that theory.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, I don't know. Like, I feel like if that's something that happens, that it would happen frequently enough that we would have experiences, as opposed to, you know what I mean? It's like random one-offs, but who am I to know?
Right. And this is a pretty big one-off, so to speak, you know?
Right. Like, this is massive.
I mean, it's one thing to remember the Monopoly Man with or without the monocle. It's another thing to, again, that's a Mandela effect example. It's another thing to literally walk through a garden where the path no longer exists and there's people out of time and you're interacting with people. oh, I'm fascinated with the story. But that, you're right. It seems like, we might be at a point where we're understanding how particles could kind of do that, how they could be quantumly entangled and be light years apart, but still instantly react when one changes phase, the other reacts, So we're kind of getting to a point where we can understand space and time in some kind of way that can make sense here a little bit. But two whole people themselves slipping through is where my mind starts to break. I want there to be a reality.
It's got to be the area then, right?
It could be, you know what? It could be the area. A lot of people talk about hotspots and portals.
Yeah, we talk about like portals that are hotspots for the paranormal. It just could be an area that's experiencing a time slip, dilation, or whatever the hell. Because if there's two people experiencing it, I think it's more likely to be the area as opposed to two individuals just aligned in that sense.
I don't know. Maybe someone else would have also slipped through in some way. I don't know. Oh, I want so badly for it to be the case, but it's hard for me to truly rationalize and then subscribe, right? But let's come back to the idea, the broad idea. When a time slip occurs, the idea is that one is shifting into this alternate universe, this alternate reality, and they don't know it. But one major theory as to what happened that day at the Palace of Versailles is that Moberly and Jourdain are absolutely correct, that they briefly time traveled to 109 years prior. And while there's no concrete evidence of the multiverse theory or time slips from a scientific perspective, many firmly believe that this is what happened to these two women. And ultimately, the idea of time and how it works will remain probably a mystery for quite some time in the scientific community. But it doesn't stop that from being an ever-present explanation for a lot of paranormal events. This episode of Red Web is sponsored by BetterHelp. October 10th is World Mental Health Day, and this year BetterHelp is saying thank you to therapists. BetterHelp therapists have helped over 5 million people worldwide with their mental health journeys. That's millions of stories, millions of journeys, and behind every one is a therapist who showed up, listened, and helped someone take a step forward. Moments in therapy, like the right question, a safe space to cry, or a small win, can change lives. My experience has shown that therapy can be a very valuable tool to tackle the hurdles that we face in lives, whether they're outside of us or inside of us and in our minds. That thing that's keeping you up at night, that thing that's causing you stress at work or in life. And therapists are amazing helpers in progressing through this journey. BetterHelp is a wonderful solution to help you find that right therapist. BetterHelp therapists work according to a strict code of conduct and are fully licensed in the US. BetterHelp does the initial matching work for you so you can focus on your therapy goals. If you aren't happy with your match, switch to a different therapist at any time from their tailored recommendations. With over 30,000 therapists, BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform, having served over 5 million people globally, and it works, with an average rating of 4.9 out of 5 for a live session based on over 1.7 million client reviews. This World Mental Health Day, celebrate the therapists who have helped millions of people take a step forward. If you're ready to find the right therapist for you, BetterHelp can help you start that journey. Task Force members get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/redweb. That's betterhelp.com/redweb. Let's dive into what honestly might fully explain this case. I usually end with the one that's kind of like, it's fake or it's made up or it's a misunderstanding. But this one is so interesting. I wanted to do it next. So in 1965, after decades of debate, a new explanation finally emerged when French novelist Philippe Julien published a biography on a French poet, a man named Robert de Montesquieu. According to his biography, Montesquieu was an aristocrat who lived near the Palace of Versailles. I wanted to look this person up, and of note, he was born in 1855 and he passed away in 1921, so he would have been right in the middle of his life in 1901, thriving and healthy, I imagine.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's what's really, here's what's interesting about this guy is that he reportedly often enjoyed throwing old costume parties, or what's called in French the tableau vivant, which is essentially a living tablet or tableau. It's a performance. It's a form of entertainment where actors are arranged but still silent, And they're kind of a moment in time, almost like a painting that you're living in. You can walk around these actors who are, maybe expressing or standing in a pose. It brings life to a physical environment, but everyone is still. And that is the tableau vivant. Now, some suspect that a more rational answer for what Moberly and Jourdain experienced that day can be provided by Montesquieu and his parties. I cannot find anywhere specific about his presence there on August 10th in 1901, but if he frequently visited and had these parties, and these two women are walking around and they think time feels like it stood still, they even said that people felt like wax figures. It kind of starts to line up.
But wouldn't you know if you're at an event?
You would think so. But if you're if I'm a tourist and I'm checking out the Eiffel Tower, I might not know that the world's first parachute is about to be dropped from the top, which by the way happened. Don't look it up. There is a video. The man passed away.
Oh.
But you don't always know when you visit a heavily toured spot that something specific might be happening.
Right, or something specific is abnormal.
Oh, if the Grand Trianon was closed, right? They were off to go see the petite one, but if they walked by the grand one and it was closed, what if that's where the party was happening, hence why it was closed? So they come stumbling in.
To an area
there's a party.
Closed off.
Now, what kind of party doesn't have hot gossip, though? I mean, if no one's allowed to talk or move...
Yeah, wouldn't there be other people there and then someone that would help explain it? You know what I mean? Like this big event and they were the only ones there is like hard to believe.
Yeah.
That's where my head is at with that. I like it.
I love it. And I'm thinking like, maybe that person looks particularly grotesque with the pockmarked face because maybe that was done with makeup to make him feel of a different time.
Yeah, I mean, it checks a lot of boxes, but the thing is like something that grand would have people in it.
Yeah. I guess when they ask their questions, they're mostly like, hey, how do we get there? Or, hey, where do we go from here? And people are kind of gesturing them on. And so maybe they're like, ma'am, you cannot be here. This is a private event or something.
Yeah.
But I guess another thing that I remember reading in their book was that they thought it was strange that the garden had essentially attendants. This was not something that happened in the modern time of 1901. There weren't people around to help you go which way or whatever. And so they thought, oh, that's proof that we are out of time. And I'm like, maybe that's proof that you walked into a group of actors who you thought were gardeners, who you then thought were people from the past.
I still I don't know, maybe they went early or during off hours or something like that. But there would have to be a ton of people like around. Maybe signs, flyers, something, right? Like it wouldn't be like this big event, no one attending and no clear signs of like, this is the event and hello and welcome.
Right. Like there's a banner with streamers and it's like, hey, if you're looking to stand still for a few hours, he's over here.
Right.
Montesquieu's bachelor pad, Come stand still and smell the hors d'oeuvres. Yeah, I got you. Is that more of a modern thing though? Like,
true, but
I don't know.
I mean, if anything, like there would be people there.
There would be people.
That's my whole holdup is that there would be people. It wouldn't be just them. And then from there, they'd be able to ask.
Right. Like, hey, why are you wearing this old getup? Or, hey, what happened to your face? Maybe that one's rude, but yeah, I don't know. I do think that it really specifically explains seeing people out of time, seeing clothing of a different time, feeling off, feeling like people are still, like the atmosphere isn't moving.
Oh, it definitely does.
But then are they the ones breaking the tableau by talking to people and then they kind of come out of their, like standing still to tell them stuff? I don't know. Yeah. So that kind of segues us into the idea, whether malicious, intentional, or otherwise, was it that this simply didn't happen? Was it that it was heavily dramatized? All very possible. When looking at evidence for this theory, many point to the fact that the details of their encounter seem to get a little bit more vague with each new iteration of their book. This could be due to fading memory of the years, or it could be seen as an intentional way to dodge specifics that may paint them into a corner historically.
Oh.
Like, why pull out details of what you experienced that day,
True. That's a good point.
unless you can truly go, oh, girl, I don't actually remember that part. Maybe I should just take it out to be safe. So maybe it's an honest move. I don't know.
The thing too is like, I guess like so long you look back, it's like, wait, did I really experience that? Like, I don't feel so strongly about it anymore. So maybe I do take it out and I put focus on like what I do still feel strongly about.
I don't know. I think when looking at their book, it does seem that over the years, as they gathered information, again, they cite some sources, but many of their learnings over the years go uncited, such as the map that I couldn't find earlier. I don't know, maybe they took things out that didn't make sense based on their learnings. I can kind of be cynical like that. Like, oh, if they learned that the garden never had a bridge, and so they go, oh, let's just take the bridge out of our story then, you know?
Yeah, because then you start rewriting history or your history and your view of it, and people are already questioning it. Like, do you leave it in if it's like a weak statement, or like do you take it out and then get questioned? It's like a double-edged sword.
Totally. So, I mean, you could see that as an act of honesty and trying to be journalistically integral, whatever the word is. But you could also see it the other way. You could also see it as cherry-picking historical facts to fit an increasingly vague story. I can see it both ways.
Yeah, I can see it both ways for sure.
Now, addressing this embellishment, some believe that yes, you know, they might have embellished some of the details, but the underlying story is true, is kind of what the argument becomes. They might have exaggerated for the sake of getting attention and ensuring that people would believe it, but also having an embellishment, especially if you admit it, would certainly raise doubt. So again, we're seeing how both sides of the believer-skeptic spectrum can approach the very same nugget and argue it either way. Regardless, ultimately, both of these two were known storytellers. And at least one knock against the validity of this whole encounter comes from a woman named Lucille Iremonger, or Iremanger, who was researching their lives, their writings. She was kind of a contemporary at the time. I think she's been said to be a student of them, but I couldn't fact find that. I couldn't corroborate that claim. Either way, she did study them. And in her 1957 book entitled The Ghosts of Versailles, she claimed that Moberly was prone to having paranormal experiences and shared accounts of historical apparitions in other places like the Louvre and castles and things. And so this does suggest a pattern that may have influenced the 1901 incident. Or she herself is the hotspot and her friend just like tagged along.
Right, just happened to be in that sphere.
She's like, girl, I slip through time all the time. I'd be very interested if this story inspired the time machine. But anyway.
I mean, when people can point back and be like, oh, you know, you're a storyteller, and then you've told these elaborate stories of different locations, and then it starts to be like a cry wolf type situation where it's like, well, how can we trust it? Is this really real? Is this just another story that you're trying to tell?
Right.
Like, it's kind of rough there.
Yeah, and especially if you're now selling a book, pseudonyms or not. Believers say the pseudonyms were to bolster the authenticity, but cynics might say, like, regardless, you're selling a book. That feels like motive enough. Like, you're protecting your academic careers, but still selling it. You're still making money on it.
Yeah, you can make that argument. That is true.
In closing, though, before we get your final thoughts, this story will forever remain one of the most intriguing claims of time slip and the paranormal. And in her 1991 essay about this encounter, Stanford professor Terry Castle states that the obsession that Moberly and Jourdain had with fact-finding, looking for historical references to their encounter, seemed almost contagious. She likens it to an infection, saying that it led to so many others becoming obsessed with this story as well, which led to papers, articles, and even more books, simply to debate this story's veracity. And all of this fans the flames of the story, whether you believe it or not, which gave it the momentum necessary to outlive either one of them up until the next century and probably beyond. I can totally see that. When I open the book and I start reading through it, it feels so deep with just like ad hoc, like historical references and notes all over the place. So I'm starting to cross-reference them all because I'm like, wait, is this claim real? But is this piece of the story true? Like,
right.
And it becomes this little like red web, this little rat's nest, you know?
Yeah, because But man, it just seems like such a early time travel story piece, which is really cool. And it's the location that's changing, which is unique. But then again, they are storytellers. So, man. I mean, they put a lot into it regardless.
Definitely. And even if it's cynically fake, I want to believe.
I mean, that's the thing. We always want to believe.
I always want to believe.
Always want to believe. But we never get enough. But I guess what is enough?
Showing me. I want that Victorian era camera to just snap a photo of a Marie Antoinette or something. You know what I mean? I want to see what she's sketching.
That would break reality for so many people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I feel like if you and I went on a ghost hunt and we had like undeniable proof of like the paranormal, I feel like you and I would sit down and have a real conversation of like, is the world ready for this?
Yeah.
Like,
does this go out?
Like, is it ready for this?
Right.
Then the next thing is like, so is the government going to like snatch us up, do experiments on us? Like what's the deal here?
Yeah. They're like, I need the Fredo tapes.
What did
they see that day?
Heavily.
Yeah, dude.
You know what I mean? There will be signs.
There will be signs that we've been snatched up and grabbed.
Right.
And that just means we have the proof. Yeah, dude. I don't know. That's true. You think if somebody has the bulletproof evidence of something that it would go out right away, but it's also kind of like when people have new technology or new inventions, it's not rare for people to go disappearing. And for some big company or big name in the past, you know, to suddenly have that technology. But to kind of close this one out, it seems that the second theory, the idea of the Montesquieu parties, has largely been taken as fact and therefore is widely believed to be the explanation for what they saw that day. But any final thoughts, any final beliefs from your end?
I mean, it fits in terms of like the bridge though, you know, maybe that was just like a little set piece.
Yes. Could have been a set piece, a bridge over nothing.
Yeah. Ah, man, it's just so wild though to like, I mean, maybe it was all just a lie, right?
Yeah.
Or they did see these things and inspired this story and they both went in on it. It's just so hard for me. Like it checked up so many boxes, but the one thing is just like, okay, when is there going to be an event this elaborate in which you're the only ones experiencing this and there's no one else that you can like talk to about it or question or whatnot? And like they so heavily did their due diligence and research, or at least it seemed like they did. And so it would come up, right? Like it's something like they'd pull some article up or newspaper or whatever the heck, where it'd be like, hey, there's this fanciful event happening. And like it happened during these days. And they go, oh, that's what we experienced, because there'd be some type of advertisement for it or somewhere. And they did a lot of research and they're smart, intelligent, all that kind of stuff. So
yeah,
like I get, yeah. I mean, that's the thing I need explained for me.
I love you kind of cracking the door back open on that, because I'm with you. If someone's trying to do this party and they want an authentic tableau from history, they're not going to want two random tourists to come trouncing through the grounds, you know, because that kind of breaks the illusion, the art that you're going for, the performance. And so I would imagine that there'd be people like, you know, stationed up to say, sorry, private event or what have you.
Yeah.
Yeah. With that has been the Moberly-Jourdain Incident. Task Force, let us know what you think in our Discord over at redwebpod.com. That's how you can join. Let us know, do you think they slipped through time? Do you think it was a tableau vivant? Do you think it was made up for money? Or is there something else we might have missed? You got to let us know. But with that said, I want to give some shout outs to Alexis Preble. Thank you for being the newest member of the task force at redwebpod.com. You got Travis Kirkland is our buff scientist of the week. And get your hit list ready. We got Zarathustra, Neo Trickster, and Dakota. Thank you all for being Squonk tier members. And Fredo, you going to take them out?
Well, here's the thing.
Okay.
Have they been taken out already? And we're just throwing the names back out there.
These are just headstones right now.
They're just headstones.
Echoes of the past.
And who knows?
They're only here because they time slipped back.
Who knows? Are they still with us? We don't know. Have they been turned into liquid and then consumed?
Sounds like definitely. I don't know.
Is it gross? It's disgusting. But we just keep throwing the names back out there.
Yeah, we never know.
Never know.
Filled with electrolytes. All right. With that said, Fred, I'll see you right back here next October Monday for yet another spooky mystery.